Integration for Development Rapid. I warmly welcome you to today's Rapid Policy Debate. Thank you everyone for joining us on Facebook and also those connected via Zoom. This session is brought to you with the support of UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. Today's motion is both timely and high stakes for Bangladesh's financial stability. It says the only sustainable solution to Bangladesh's non-performing loans a loan crisis is the closure or merger of chronically weak public banks. This is not just a technical banking discussion, it is a discussion on confidence in the financial system, responsible governance, and ensuring that credit supports real economic growth rather than repeated risk and leakage. Our goal today is to create a respectful, evidence-based platform where strong ideas can be shared and policy options can be assessed with clarity. Let us now introduce our distinguished guests and teams. First, guiding today's discussion is our moderator, Dr. Mohammad Deen Islam, Research Director at RAPID and also Associate Professor at the Department of Economics, the University of Dhaka. Dr. Dean will steer the debate, manage time, and ensure we maintain a sharp focus on arguments, evidence, and constructive engagement. Joining us as our distinguished panelist is Dr. Bozlul Haq Khandakar sir, who is Vice Chairman of RAPID, also Director of PRI, and former Professor at the Department of Economics, the University of Dhaka. Dr. Khandakar will provide expert insights, reflect on the strengths of arguments presented today, and help us connect the debate to real-life policy pathways. Now, introducing our debating teams. Representing the supporting team from Jagannath University, we have Nazimun Akhtar Sumaya, Faria Afzal Eva. They will be arguing in favor of the motion why closure or merger of chronically weak public banks is the most sustainable route to resolving the NPL crisis. And representing the opposing team from the University of Dhaka, we have Khandakar Naushin Navar and Anaf Amir Onabil. They will argue against the motion, challenging whether closure or merger is truly the only sustainable option and what alternative reform options may deliver better outcomes with lower systematic risk. To our speakers, we appreciate your participation and the intellectual discipline it takes to debate in such a complex policy issue. And to our audience, we welcome your attention and thoughtful engagement. Please stay with us till the end of the session. And now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Mohammad Deen Islam to formally begin the session and outline the debate format. Over to you, Deen, sir.
Thank you very much, Jara. And thank you, Lokandaka sir and Isu sir, for being present here. And thank you, the both teams. The format we will follow is following. Each participant from both team will have 7 minutes to present the argument. And once we finish speech from each team, then we'll hear from our panelist, expert Dr. Professor Dr. Abdullah Khandakar sir. But before I start, let me request RAPID's Executive Director, Professor Dr. Abu Yusuf sir, to provide some insights on this topic, a very important topic, since sir is also involved in banking sector very closely. Sir, if you can give some insights, framework before we start to debate.
Thank you, Dr. Deen Islam. Thank you, Zara. I think today's the policy debate, rapid policy debate, is a regular event that we do monthly webinar on any important and contemporary topical issues. And as usual, there are two teams, one is supporting team and opposing team. So I must thankful to the supporting team members of Jagannath University, Nazimun Akhtar and Faria Afzal Eva, and also opposing team member from Department of Development Studies, Dhaka University, Kandokar Nausheen Nawar, and Anna Amir Onabil. Really grateful to Dr. Professor Buzla Kandokar sir, Vice Chairman of Rapid, and also one of my mentor. So really grateful to sir for his time despite his sickness. So today's topic is really important issues, and particularly after 5th August, July uprising movement, what we have seen that in the financial sector, non-performing loan is really a mammoth crisis in Bangladesh. The first, we did not know what's the actual size of non-performing loan, but gradually we came to know that it's more than 6 lakh crore taka non-performing loan, which is almost closer to our budget amount, national budget amount. Now the question is how we can deal or address these non-performing loan issues, because we need to have a disciplined financial sector and we must address these issues. And we know that there is no conclusive solution to deal with these non-performing loan issues. But let us hear from both the parties, from opposing team and supporting team. I think they will come up with their argument. The audience will be enormously benefited from their arguments, from their debate, and hope we will enjoy the today's debate on a particular and really on a important contemporary issues, which has some policy implications as well. So thank you so much for your participation, and hope this rapid webinar will be continued in future. And also grateful to UKF Studio for their support to organize such webinar in a regular manner. And finally, Dr. Din Islam, who has been conducting this webinar on a regular manner, and Zara Shahidul and Rapid team for their support. Thank you, Dr. Din.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. So, as Professor Dr. Yusuf was saying, that the issue is very critical for Bangladesh right now. We know that five private banks is merged into a large private banks, সম্মিলিত Islamic Bank. But we have problems in state-owned bank. So the NPL in those banks ranging from 20% to 76%. And as the revision is coming, the fraction of NPL is going up and up. So we'd like to hear the thoughts of young minds and their policy approach to solve this critical problem. We also have an expert. We'll hear from him at the end. So without further ado, let me start. Let me invite from the supporting team, we have two members, Najimun Akhtar Sumaya and Faria Akhtar Iva. So, who is going to speak first? So, you'll have 7 minutes to speak, and then I will give you a warning at the end of 5 minutes. Please stop at the end of 7 minutes. So, Najimun Akhtar Sumaya and Faria Akhtar Iva, please start. Faria, you will start.
And Harriet Saliba from the supporting side of this motion.
Okay, please start. Thank you.
So, first of all, Honorable Chairman, respected adjudicators, and my fellow debaters, Assalamu alaikum to you all. And I would like to give my special thanks to the Honorable Chairman for giving us for arranging this webinar to make us more up to date with the current situation. So today I am standing firmly in support of the motion that the only sustainable solution to Bangladesh's non-performing loan crisis is the closure or merger of chronically with public banks. So, as the first supporting speaker, my responsibility is not to jump straight to the solutions, but explain the frame of this problem by economic diagnosis and explain why past policies have been failed, and that's why the only sustainable solution can be the merger or closure. So we need to know that what is non-performing loan in economic system. So non-performing loans are loans where borrowers have failed to make repayments for an extended period of time, typically for 3 months or for at least 90 days. These are commonly referred to as bad loans or non-performing assets. So here we can see that the banker sectors playing the role of the lenders, and the different institutions, different publics are playing the role of borrower, and who are taking the loans. They are not being able to pay the repayments on proper time. So it's a great crisis for the economic balance. So as I am supporting the merger or closure is the only sustainable solution, we need to know that what is merger or what is the closure of any public for any public banks or for the government or central policies. So in terms of public banks, closure and merger are two policies which are taken by the government and central bank to deal with weak loss-making and inefficient banks, especially when problems like high non-performing loans persist for a long time. So closure means the permanent shutdown of a bank by the government or the central bank because it has become financially non-viable. And the merger means combining two or more banks into one single entity. Usually, a weak bank is merged with a stronger bank. So we can understand from here that uh, merger and closure can be the only possible way of solution to is sustainable to make this sustainable solution of non-performing loan crisis. So let me explain the scale of this problem in Bangladesh. Bangladesh's banking sector is facing a severe and rapidly worsening NPL crisis. The NPL ratios are huge and rising. Overall NPLs in Bangladesh have soared with some estimates placing the proportion of bad loans at around 35 to 36% of all loans, which is far above from global safe norms, and the global safe norms must be less than 10%. So from here we can see that it's a great crisis. It's much more far from our global norms rate. So at one point, NPLs hit Taka 420,334.94 crore, about 24.13% of total loans. Other analysis report the ratio of non-performing loans jumping over 30% in the sector. So this is a huge increase compared to the earlier years, reflecting both new defaults and better transparency revealing previously concealed bad loans. So we can see that the previous concealed loans have been a great, great, uh, a great, great threat for this non-performing loan crisis. So I would like to give some explanation about the causes of these non-performing loans. The non-performing loans can be occurred for various reasons, but the probable or the remarkable causes can be economic factors, lender-related factors, and borrower-related factors. So, economic factors can be recession, high unemployment ratios, and general economic instability can make difficult for individuals and businesses to meet their payments obligations. The lender-related factors can also be a causes of non-performing loans, poor loans underwriting, insufficient
Two more
monitoring, and
minutes.
sorry,
2 more minutes.
insufficient monitoring and even internal collision can lead to loans being issued to unqualified. Moreover, borrower-related factors are also a main reason to make this non-performing loan crisis. So let me show some statistics about the public or state-owned banks who are the main issues for these non-performing loans. So the public banks have tried many policies before to reduce these non-performing loans, and they have been failed repeatedly. So I can show those policies which the banks would have been followed, and they have failed, and that's why the merger and closure can be the only possible or sustainable solution for this non-performing loan. So the first initiative I can mention from the public banks is to loan rescheduling and restructuring, relaxing loan classification rules, recovery drives, and legal actions, government capital injections, regulatory reforms on paper. So these are the probable solutions that the banks find to minimize non-performing loan crisis in several times. Now comes to the question that why non-performing loans didn't uh, decrease in that period, because they were that policies was not so much uh, capable for the recent political system up to date, and it has many flaws and
Yeah, please
very many
complete your speech in next 30 seconds.
uh, there were many mismanagement in this policy. That's why the bank wouldn't reach in one solution to reduce non-performing loans. NPL are not just numbers; they reflect massive systematic financial failure. When public banks hold up to 70% of their loan books as bad, the whole economy pays the price, and that's why this is not a temporary shock. This is persistent, repeated, and structural failure. So the closure or merger can be the only sustainable solution for this crisis. So that's all from me. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Faria. You actually correctly pointed out that in other Asian countries, the average NPL is 1.6, according to Asian Development Bank. But right now in Bangladesh, it is more than 35%. Okay, now let me go to the opposing team. We have two team members, Khandokar Naushin Nawar and Ahnaf Hamid Onabil. So I guess Khandokar Naushin Nawar, you'll be
Yes,
speaking
sir. I
first.
will be going next from side opposition.
Okay, please. 7 minutes. I'll give you warning at the end of 5 minutes.
Thank you
Please
so
go
much
ahead.
for giving me the floor, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Before starting with our arguments and rebuttal, we would first like to shed some light under the term sustainable solution. Now, how do we define a solution that is sustainable? A sustainable solution is something that addresses the core cause of an issue and prevents its recurrences in the long term. It cannot be a short term quick fix that temporarily relieves the symptoms of a problem and allows it to resurface somewhere else. And on that ground, the side opposition is very proud to oppose the motion that the only sustainable solution to the mounting NPL crisis in Bangladesh is the closure and merger of chronically weak public banks. And we rest our claim on two main arguments, which will be discussed throughout my speech. Number one is only merger or closure does not guarantee that the future lending practices will be improved, since the systematic failures in the credit culture will cease to exist even if a merger or closure of a chronically weak public bank happens. And secondly, only merger and closure does not guarantee that the percentage of NPL, which is at an all time high in Bangladesh, will be reduced, since the underlying cause of NPL is essentially the government failure, is the poor incentive mechanisms within the bank, is the poor regulatory or reformation failure, which will cease to exist. And all a merger or closure essentially does for an economy is it takes out the poorly performing banks out of the system and allows the whole NPL crisis to resurface somewhere else in some other bank in some other name. Now, moving on to our rebuttals from what side proposition. All the arguments are based on the assumption that what a merger or closure essentially will do is they will redirect the loan under better government system. They will redirect the loans to better banks. And since NPLs are highly concentrated among a few banks, if they get under a better banking system, the issue will magically disappear. The discipline will automatically transferred to the poorly performing banks. Now, this may sound like an intuitively workable solution, but we will show you how, in reality, this all it does is set the country up for a big financial failure in three ways. Firstly, merger or closure does not automatically bring discipline. Merger or closure does not automatically transfer discipline from strong banks to weak banks. In fact, all it essentially does it even makes the strong banks weaker, because when a strong bank absorbs a comparatively weaker bank, all it happens in the process it absorbs all its mounting credit loans, it absorbs all its bad loans, which drains out its own capital, and it also limits its own lending capabilities to other banks, which creates huge liquidity pressures in the economy, which also impacts the depositors of the strong banks and creates a huge depositor anxiety among the public in Bangladesh. And in the research of a Bangladesh bank report, it has been shown that the deposits fall by over 9% when there is any rumor or anxiety caused by the mergers or existing scandals related to public banks in Bangladesh. Now, secondly, what a solution like a merger or closure essentially focuses on is it sees the issue of NPL to be a bank centric problem, not a borrower centric one, because we have to understand that the problem with LPN is not just bad banks, it is as much as the bad borrowers as it is the poor governance structures. So even after a merger or closure happens, the same big conglomerates, the same big politically affiliated leaders will continue to dominate in the market. They will borrow from the existing banks and which now operate under the same name, and they will face no consequences, and they will be no more confident as they have not faced any real consequences after the default. So you cannot fix a bad credit culture with creating new identities, while the recovery environment, where the legal environments remain the same, and where you cannot promise the 6.3 trillion BDT that we have currently lost to NPLs in Bangladesh is retrieved. And lastly, and most essentially, what the main problem with merger and closure is it pushes the system to enter a too big risk to fail dynamic. Now, what is a too big to fail dynamic? It essentially means that the merged entities will be so big, their failure will cause such a big trade off that governments and regulators cannot credibly allow these entities to collapse, because their failure would create a huge financial risk in the country. The risk will become private, losses will become public, and that will be borne by the taxpayers of the country, and the borrowers will tend to end up defaulting more, since they will know that this is a too big to fail crisis, and they will more like the government will be more softer with the enactment of laws. The government will have more money to bail them out, and the default rate will essentially increase more. This has been, and this also leads to another problem, that it requires huge capital in the system, which has been seen in case of the 2008 financial crisis of USA, where a
Two more
700
minutes.
billion bailout plans were kept to keep the institution afloat, which is just not a sustainable solution in terms of Bangladesh. Now, moving on to our set of arguments why we think that NPL issues cannot be solved by merger or closure alone. First, the main cause of NPL is not the poor performing banks. It is the misaligned incentive structures in Bangladesh with NPL, where bad behavior is rewarded and good behavior is not. It is essentially a problem of moral hazard. Since historically, loan volume has been prioritized over loan quality in Bangladesh, and the growth of loan and advances has remained as a key performance metric. So, whether loan continues to be repaid over time without repeated rescheduling or write off has not been prioritized in Bangladesh. So the borrowers have continued to exist in an environment where default rarely leads to penalties, where loans are repeatedly rescheduled, interest rate is often waived in the long run, and enforcement is often delayed. And this cannot be a solution. Merger and closure cannot be a credible solution to a problem this big. And secondly, this is a system-wide governance failures, as and it is not a few bank centric problem. Even private banks in Bangladesh have loan ratios of 15 to 20, NPL ratios of 20 to 15%. And banks use soft classification, they delay recognizing default, and even reschedule to make their portfolios healthier. So when you introduce a solution such as closure or merger, this does not essentially address the problems, and these all go unnoticed. Now, what the side opposition did not do is they did not tell us why merger and closure is the only sustainable solution, whereas where we will provide with our next speaker that restoring governance and accountability, cleaning up balance sheets through credible resolution and recapitalization, including loss recognition and time bound recovery plans, these are not a better sustainable solution. This has
Complete
not
your
been
speech in
answered
30
by
seconds.
thank you so much. I will just take 1 minute. And this has not been answered by the side proposition. They have not shown, they did not do a way of how the other more credible solutions cannot be the only sustainable, cannot be a sustainable approach to the mounting NPL problems of Bangladesh. And lastly, to test the claim that the only sustainable solution of NPLs is closure or merger, we will ask 4 questions and see if that approach puts us to a better status quo than the one we are currently at. Number one, does it stop the misallocation of credit? The answer is no. The inflation borrowers still have access to credit. Number two, does it help with recovering money that has already been gone? No, we will all still lose the 6.3 trillion BTT that we have lost to NPL in Bangladesh currently. Number three, does it bring people's confidence? The answer is no. It creates depositor anxiety and it creates liquidity pressure in the economy. And lastly, does it stop the same problem from happening again? No, it does not, as it does not initiate any enactment of strong laws and order. The rest of the solution and alternative mechanisms will be given by my teammate. Thank you so much for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Noshin, for analyzing the argument. Let me now go back to the supporting team. Uh, Supporting team Najimun Akhtar Sumaya.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, respected moderator, panelists, and opponents. My teammate has already explained why Bangladesh's non-performing loan crisis is structural in nature. Honorable Judge, we are debating on today's motion when Bangladesh is witnessing the merger of 5 private banks and closure of several weak financial institutions. This reality itself tells us one important thing, that structural action is no longer theoretical. It is already underway. With this context in mind, we strongly support the motion that the only sustainable solution to Bangladesh's non-performing loan crisis is the closure or merger of chronically weak public banks. We know public banks operate under implicit government guarantees. For this, managers expect bailouts, borrowers expect leniency, and political interference exists. As a result, bad loans are repeatedly rolled over instead of being resolved. From an economic perspective, this creates a classic case of moral hazard where risky behavior continues because failure carries no real cost to banks. My opponent team claims that government's reform is happening and it may be sufficient. However, if reforms were enough, Bangladesh would not be facing persistently high non-performing loans after decades of repeated reform attempts. The issue is not the absence of rules, the issue is the absence of consequences. Bangladesh Bank has identified 38 banks, including 6 state-owned banks, as weak lenders out of the 54 analyzed in 2024. And it has been signing memorandum of understanding since 2007 to improve the financial condition of state-owned banks. It monitors by setting targets in memorandum of understanding. Even after all these years, all these things, the financial condition of banks has not improved much. Instead, new investment remain stalled. Uh, uh, new and Instead, new investment remains stalled as borrowing costs climbed, with the central bank holding the policy rate at 10%, the highest among the neighboring economies. That is, the outgoing years did not fix the banking sector, which our government doing. Rather, it stripped away illusions. Once we understand the problem of incentivizing public banks, it becomes clear why merger or closure is necessary. First, merger or closure ensures stability and restores discipline. It is not assumption, it is the reality. When chronically weak public banks are merged or closed, losses are recognized. On the other end, when public banks faces losses, when government guarantees, they did not take it as a real cost to them. Accountability is enforced when merged or closed the public banks are, and the failure becomes credible. Moreover, this sends a strong signal across the entire banking sector, not only those merged or closed banks. Secondly, it strengthens the financial systems. Weak banks trap capital in non-performing loans. By removing non-viable banks, capital is freed and redirected to productive sectors. Consequently, credit allocation improves and confidence returns. Thirdly, it protects public finances because repeated recapitalization of public banks increases fiscal pressures, crowds out private investment, transfers losses to taxpayers. With this in mind, merger or closure becomes not just a banking decision but a macroeconomic necessity. Moreover, a weak bank cannot support development, which our country is required. From international side, other countries also taking this as policy, like countries such as South Korea, Japan, and India have closed or merged weak banks to restore financial stability. Those that delayed decisive action experienced longer and deeper crises. Bangladesh cannot afford indefinite delay. Moreover, we do not looking for short-run solution. We are looking for sustainability, and sustainability requires accountability, credible consequences for failure, and end to permanent fiscal leakages. As long as chronically weak public banks continue to operate unchanged, every reform will remain temporary. That is why closure or merger is not one option among many. It is the only sustainable solution. So, institutions that are chronically weak cannot be protected indefinitely. Therefore, we firmly support the nation's motion that the only sustainable solution to Bangladesh's non-performing loan crisis is the closure or merger of chronically weak public banks. Thank you. That's from me. This story.
Thank you so much, Najimun, for finishing in time. So let me now invite the other speaker from the opposing team, Ahnaf Amir Onabil.
Okay, so am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Thanks to the honorable judge for giving me the floor. Actually, from my first teammate, she asked a basic question that why this is the only solution, why other solutions or why other policies we showed you in this debate will not work for this non-performing loans. There were no specific answer from the government side team, so they have failed to answer this thing, and this gives us an advantage in this debate from the very first thing. Secondly, we have also some questions from them. Will this merging or closing the non-performing loans public banks will help us to ensure exemplary punishment for those non-defaulters? The answer is no. Also, the government team didn't interact in this issue. Will this ensure bringing back the money from those bringing back the defaulted money? There is no particular answer from the government side team. Also, the most important thing is the mindset or the mindset or the psychology of the people of Bangladesh. What we see in general. In general, the thing is when people say there are defaulted loans or when they see a bank is on the way to be bankrupt, they actually
Just one.
withdraw their money and they say, uh,
Shohidul, can you please mute yourself? Shohidul, Shohidul, can you please mute yourself? Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
okay, so thank you so much. So the main problem is the people of how the people of Bangladesh actually think about this issue. When they face like a bank is there are many defaulted loans and the banks are getting merged. They actually think they will lose their money and they try to withdraw all their money, and this creates the biggest problem. We see many banks face liquidity crisis, and the depositors also rush to withdraw their money, and this liquidity crisis actually creates many problems for those banks. So this is a very significant problem in this issue. So I think they are actually saying this losses are recognized by closing or merging. I think from the context of Bangladesh, letting the people recognize this creates more problems. So to be realistic, if we think realistically, this will create furthermore problem, and this doesn't necessarily bring back any money. This doesn't necessarily ensure any punishment for those loan defaulters. So they have no, so the side government team has not answered many questions which are required in this policy debate. Why this is the sustainable solution, how this will ensure, how this will mitigate all the problems, and why our solutions, the many other solutions which what were provided by Priyoti Apu are will not be executed, is not answered by the side government team. So if I show you some impacts of this closing or merging, also one more thing is which policy will they take, why closing is significant or why merging is significant. Also we can see the current scenario of those private Islamic private banks, like the salary is 20% reduced for those five banks, and there are many restrictions on those bank on money withdrawal, and overlapping branches will be accumulated, and this will create a problem of job losing. So how these problems will be checked, how this problem will be checked by for the public banks. As we can see, the public banks have many more branches in our rural areas. So how these problems will be solved, there is no particular answer from the government sides. And if we see, there are many, the public banks actually work on small and medium enterprises giving loans, and rural borrowers also get credit access from them, and the private banks will not necessarily work on solving these problems if the public banks are getting merged, and after getting merged they will be unable to provide immediately those kind of loans. So that will also be stopped in our country context, and after that those smaller rural borrowers will face immediate problems. The private banks will not interfere in these things because this is a high risk sector and the profit margin is very low. So the thing is, our people from rural areas will face an immediate problem. One more problem is what I was saying about the public confidence in banking, liquidity pressure on the bank, and fear spreads to other weak banks. These things actually creates problems on the consumer. So we have to be realistic. We all know that this will ensure a better asset, ensure better asset quality, ensure better. This might be sustainable after long run, but you have to think about your consumers. If they are not in a good state, if they are not satisfied, if they are in fear, then you cannot create more money, you cannot keep trust, you cannot keep the trust of your consumers. Then we can see there will be many more hidden costs, like the government may have to compensate the deposits, and from the context of Bangladesh, this is not likely to be compensated. So we have to think about these things also. So closing or merging will not necessarily give us any sustainable solution. Also, if you think what might be the solutions, there we can see South Korea or Malaysia took initiative on asset management company, on setting up asset management company by their government, which worked on recovery, restructuring, and liquidation. They actually, we can work more on differentiating the willful versus genuine defaulters. Who are they, how to keep them under track, how to find out them, and how to bring back the money. We can start fast track financial courts, which will be, and India got easy recovery from by using this method, and we can strengthen Bangladesh banks independence, which is very much important. We can strengthen more independence, we can strengthen our political accountability, the most important thing from the context of Bangladesh. If the political accountability is not ensured, whatever you do, if you merge the bank or close the bank, what if the next political party who come next to the power and does the same thing, it will not necessarily solve any problem. So you have to be the political stability, the political accountability, and the uh, this problem should be checked as soon as possible. This is the main problem actually we faced in the in our last regime. So we have to work on this. If we can check this problem,
Two more
if we can
minutes.
make the bank more independent in this issue, then I think we all think that closing or merging is not will not be necessary for you. Rather, you can solve the problem in a sustainable way, because the political problem is the biggest problem of Bangladesh. Like, what were the scenario in the banks? The political leaders or the businessmen who were influenced by any sort of political party or that time's current government, they actually went to the bank and took a large amount of loan, and the managers of this that of a particular branch were bound to provide that loan to them. So if we don't ensure the reformation of this system, if we don't ensure reformation of this problem, then it will not be a sustainable solution. However, whatever you do, if you close the bank, you have merged the bank let's say you have merged the bank, but the same things happens, the same thing will if the same things repeat, so that will not give you any proper solution. So we have already shown you many kind of solutions. We have shown you what can be done, and we have shown you why closing and merging will not necessarily give you any sustainable solution. And we have shown you closing and merging will create problems among the depositors, will create fear, will make them afraid about the banking system, will make them afraid about being bankrupt. So these things will create further more problems, and rather our solutions might be sustainable if you can implement those acts, if you can implement new policies, if you can work strictly on your existing laws, if your reform commission does work on it, then you can go for a better solution, you can go for a long-term solution which will give you a better situation. So
Running out
that's
of
all
time.
from my side. Thanks to all.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you all the speakers. So this is a policy debate, and in policy debate, we'd like to understand the topic from different perspectives. And so there's no winner or loser in this debate, but I must congratulate each of you. You did an excellent job explaining the issue, very complicated issue, in very easy term from different perspective. The issue is very critical right now for the economy of Bangladesh, and many experts are working on this. But let me now hear from our panelist, expert on this issue. Sir, Bullock sir, if you can shed some light on this issue, please.
Thank you, Din, and also Professor Abu Yusuf, and inviting me for this very interesting topic and also important topic. And I must again congratulate both the team. They have, I think, any of in this debate. I mean, there are always two parties. No, one oppose, one actually support the motion. So basically, if you look at the motion, there are a few things that needs to be seen. Like there's one word is only. That's very important. The second key word is sustainable solution. We are looking for a sustainable solution. Then also there are two important things: closure and merger. It comes in an important issue. And the final issue that I found is that we are talking about public banks. So in Bangladesh, there are lots of different kinds of banks in the banking system: public bank, private bank, commercial, and also there are foreign banks. So perhaps we're talking about only the public sector banks, which are like Sonali Bank, Janata Bank, Amrani Bank, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken. On the other hand, the merger that we are seeing now is basically five private sector Islamic bank. Those who have very high NPL, like almost, to my understanding, 90% and more than 90% of that one. So they were incapable of actually performing or functioning their day-to-day work. So that this kind of one solution that Bangladesh Bank has thought that, okay, rather than closing these like banks, which are maybe that will create a lot of like what you call issues in terms of confidence in the banking sector. And we see that there are some contagious effect. If you close one bank, it started closing, I mean, the confidence so poor that it also affects, I mean, more moderately performing banks also. So there is a fear of that one also. So I think again both the team put forward their points very strongly, and as we said, I mean both teams have performed well. So I must congratulate them again. So now, I'm not an banking sector specialist. I'm an economist by training, but since a lot of people are working, and one good thing is that we have a good governor in Bangladesh Bank now, who is an basically monetary economist, work in IMF, has long experience in terms of looking into banking sector, also external sector. So we are hoping that good things will emerge from Bangladesh Bank leadership. But looking into like so if you look at the issues so a lot of people are working as Dean said. So one paper I was reading um, to prepare for this one. So they have come up with five like points that what are the reason behind this rising NPL in Bangladesh. Like the one identified that major borrowing defaulted after collapse of the past regime. So there was this like you were taking loan from one bank and then actually somehow you're uh, able to I mean keep the ball rolling, but that was not possible after the collapse of the last regime. A lot of money were also printed, so they were got a lot of like money from printed money, which have different kinds of problem. We know then significant loan irregularities in the previous regime, no doubt. Like I mean, we know that I will talk about a little bit more. Then bank linked to politically connected, some of you have already said business have seen sharp rise in NPL. So those were not monitored properly, or they got like support from the political institution or political parties in the last regime. After that, the last 1 year, we still struggle. No, we have a regime change, but we still struggle to actually lower it. It's keep increasing because of the past, possibly the momentum effect, and some of these are now more realized now, which were like covered. Now these are becoming uncovering of the past things. So they also point to two things. One is the sluggish loan recovery amid political instability. We know that this is not the normal situation. There are a lot of political instability in Bangladesh still now. And what's going to happen, like how we are going to move from one regime to another regime, transition of power to like from the interim government to political, like elected government is still, to my understanding, is still uncertain and also not very clear. Then also in April 2025, we have a new resolution in terms of rigorous international loan standard that suddenly, which were not like earlier classification, were though not classified as not NPL, they become classified. They become classified as NPL. So there has been another also in terms of we move from a. This is a correct approach, I believe. We move from a another kind of standard to a new international standard. So those are the five things that are actually pointed out as the major cause of rising NPL in Bangladesh, which is very high. We know, and it's a major financial sector major problem. Now, in terms of the solution, like we don't have one. To me, I don't think there is the one kind of solution is there. So you can think of like quick fix or immediate solution, or a medium term solution, also long term solution in terms of that. Possibly, central bank was thinking that the merger could be a medium term solution for these five like highly like NPL banks. So they thought that this could be one. But my understanding is that central bank is also looking for other alternative. Like they're working on four issues like write-off some of the loans. They know that it cannot be recovered even if you merge or close. Then also restructuring and an option always has been in working in Bangladesh. Then recovery, and also like lastly that selling this debt to the asset management company at a lower value. So there are four things. My understanding is that they're working on that. These are not easy solution, I must say, and those four solutions will have to be a long-term solution because also possibly we know that the Bangladesh Bank has a new department called the Banking Resolution Department, which has just started to. They're looking into long-term solution to this one. The solution is one thing, the sustainability is another thing. Now we can have solution to this problem, possibly if everything goes well according to the plan of Bangladesh Bank. Maybe we will have some kind of lessening of reduction of NPL within 2-3 years. But this doesn't guarantee that this will not reoccur in Bangladesh. So in terms of reoccurring sustainability, to my understanding, will recur further things, further understanding, and also commitment from like the political regime, political parties, the either the current government, the next government, and also government after that one. So my I think that one is that we need good governance. There is no I mean doubt of that. Good financial governance. I mean, one is the governance and good financial governance. One, some people say that central bank independence could bring that one. So if they are independent, autonomous, they can have a shield, so they can actually work on like that one. The other thing, my understanding is that this is a public bank talking about. So all the banks should be under one regulatory framework. So the public bank is under actually FID, that under Minister of Finance, and the commercial banks are under a central bank. So central bank have less power on the public sector bank. So why we should have this dichotomy or two different kinds of regulation for the same kind of bank? So I think that's also we need to find out a solution this one or agreement this one. Should we have this kind of like two regulatory or one single regulatory? The independence, as I said, is an important issue. We need to see whether, but at the same time, like we need to also man the Bangladesh bank with a more effective and a reduced workforce who are efficient, who can work. I mean, without fear, without the politicized, with the central bank and every institution have been politicized. So we need to think of how we can actually have an independent but effective central bank in that way. The other thing I also think is that um, banking sector is basically intermediary, and they are bringing savings for the long term, short term, medium term credit. They're not actually long-term financing institution. It has to come from capital market, a good capital market and a bond market. And that is what is not existing in Bangladesh. We have been trying, but there is no credible capital market in Bangladesh. So people cannot actually, or entrepreneur cannot actually raise money, long-term financing from the capital market. So by default, we are taking long-term credit to an institution which are not supposed to provide long-term credit. So that also, to my mind, create another kind of problem. So we also need to think how we can actually have a very strong capital market and a bond market where they will provide the long-term capital for the industrialization and the long-term development of that. So in summary, this has been a very fantastic debate. I learned from my young colleagues and young students from Government University and also Dhaka University. Congratulations to them. And I think that there is no quick fix, but I think merger is one kind of specific solution that we're looking into. But I think we need to a holistic approach for the solution and also sustainable financial system. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for explaining a very complicated issue in very easy words and very eloquently. Uh, you actually provided a lot of food for thoughts, not only for us here, for all the people working in the sector. Very critical issues which needs to be resolved. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Let me now request Yusuf, sir. Sir, if you have any few concluding remarks. Yusuf, sir.
So thank you so much. I think you have covered many things in light of what is going on in Bangladesh, and we know that Bangladesh Bank has taken many initiative to at least to have a current figure of non-performing loan. That is one of the achievement also, and there are some initiative taken how we can address it. Some initiatives are short term, some medium term, some long term. So hopefully, if we want to get the result. One message that is clear that if anyone has any defaulter, willful defaulter, what we can say. So they earlier, we did not know who are the willful defaulters. So now the environment is something like that. The defaulter, they got a message that it is not easy to get rid of taking money from the bank. At least they will be under purview of the law. That is the main key message. So we have heard both the opposition and supporting team. I think wonderful points both team covered. We are really grateful to all, both the team, Dhaka University and Jagannath University. They are the young, young researcher or young student. We also appreciate and also wishing their best in their future endeavor. Thank you, Dr. Din.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much, the participants, our expert, Professor Dr. Lakondokar sir, and all of you. Please join us next time in our next policy debate. So thank you again. Have a good night. Bye.
স্যার থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ, অনেক কৃতজ্ঞতা স্যার, আপনার শরীর খারাপ। স্যার 31 তারিখ 2টায় আবার ইনশাল্লাহ অনলাইনে দেখা হবে। জি স্যার,
ভালো থেকো। হ্যাঁ, থ্যাংক
আর
ইউ।
আজকে তো দেখা হচ্ছে ইনশাল্লাহ। জি 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 জি। ডক্টর দিন, থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ।
Thank you, sir.
কি অবস্থা, কোনো গুড নিউজ?
না স্যার, এখন